Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So Stefan is here. So first of all, I want to tell you guys, I'm very happy with the views I've received from my previous videos, and I think that there is some real interest in not just Marvel or comics like Marvel and DC, but also in movies themselves and how movies actually affect our life, our everyday life, and everything. So because of it, I decided to prepare a video. I mean, I did a little bit of a research on a story that actually impacted me a little bit in the past. It's a story that I followed through in my youth days, let's say like this. And well, anyway, this is a story that has all the important elements to make it a story that anyone can pick up, follow through the end, and actually understand a lot about it. That's what I think, anyway. So, without any further ado, let's begin. So, this is my analysis of Full Metal Alchemist, the story, which is also visible in the anime version Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. So, anyway, let's begin. So, Full Metal Alchemist is a very interesting story. It's a story of two boys that find themselves struck with a situation. Their mother dies and they try to bring her back using alchemy, which is a type of technique available in your world. So anyway, they went ahead and tried a taboo technique, that is with alchemy they tried to bring back their dead mother, and these things didn't work out. In the process, one of them lost the entire body, the other one lost an arm and a leg. So because of it, they start this long journey to try to find a way to get their bodies back to how they were. Along their way, of course, they meet a lot of people. They unveil a lot of mysteries and find out a lot of interesting stories on what is going on actually in the country they live in. But let's dive it a little bit deeper now into the story element. That is, what makes this story really interesting and singular compared to some other stories out there. All right. So first of all, the story is well defined and clearly structured. What do I mean by it? While you follow the story, you find different elements that help you understand the world. So they start, of course, very slowly. They try to start to define some important aspects of the world, which is very similar to our own actually, and then they try to explain what is different in the world. Okay, so but other than that, the more you proceed with the story, the common mistake that many movies or stories do is that you proceed with the story, and the more you go on, the more the story contradicts itself. Some elements, some facts that happen, like in the series, for example, some episodes after the first one contradict slightly, and then more and more some facts that seemed very relevant and true in the first story, in the first episode. Full Metal Alchemist doesn't do that. You follow the story, and the more you proceed with it, the more you realize that it's always connecting things to what you've seen even at the beginning. What you've seen at the beginning holds true even at the end. This is what I mean. So I suspect that the author actually wrote down the whole story and then went through with explaining the story through her comics step by step without changing anything in order to keep the quality of the story alive. So the second point I want to bring is the story took its time to describe the world and the characters. Like I said, it was not fast paced. It went step by step. It didn't. It wasn't afraid to really dive into some aspects of the character's life that you need to know in order to actually feel closer to them, and even to understand why they make certain choices along the story. So they took the time to show the world that is very similar to our own, only like a old version, like a pre-World War version of the world, but with this slight difference, like alchemy in this case. And they made sure that the characters were developed as well. They took the time to really explain for each character where they're coming from, why they do what they do, and what's important to them. Another important point is no character is overpowered, and that's something very interesting. Now I'm talking about what you see sometimes in some stories. Some stories, whenever they contain action, they fall into the trap of making either the protagonist or the villain overpowered. Like, he can do everything. He's God. Why? Because he is. This is a common mistake that many stories do make, alright? Now, in Metal Alchemist, they try to their best to make sure that this doesn't happen. Even when at the end of the story you have a character like the homunculus father that end up having powers similar to what you would say like God, they tried the fact that they went step by step to explain everything made it so that it didn't contradict the first episode. So the fact that he was what he was helped you to understand that no, he's not God, but he's powerful for being of that world, but not without explanation. You know why? Because the story explains everything. In some other stories, they don't do this. They just jump. You don't see a character for a while, it comes back, he's suddenly powerful. He enters in a mysterious place, he comes out, he's suddenly powerful, without really any real explanation. Why? Is it because you want the story just to go on? Or is it because you're fearing that the story is not interesting anymore? This is a common problem. So, in Fullmetal Alchemist, because of the fact that they try to follow the original idea of the story, they don't end up in this trap. And that's what I enjoy the story. That's why you can follow it through. You don't never feel like a passage is forced or like if they were trying so hard. No, they always try to follow the script they had initially in mind, and then you can really appreciate the story, which is good. So another point is, like I said, this story is about this world that is very, very similar to our own. It looks like our own actually, if not that it is based in the past and it has alchemy. So what is alchemy is basically the idea that you need to understand what something is made of in order to deconstruct it and reconstruct something else with the same elements you began with. So with alchemy, you cannot create something that is bigger than what you initially used to create something else, right? Or if something was inorganic, you cannot create something organic. You cannot create life, which is why you cannot do what they call human transmutation, what the protagonist wanted to do to bring back their mother. That was human transmutation, which is against the laws of alchemy because there is no value on the soul of a human being. Anyone who tries that fails in the story. They never really succeed. Instead, they lose parts of themselves, organs, arms, an entire body. These are the problems in the story. But like I said, this is it. For the rest, the world is like what we know. This is what I mean. The story is simple in that way. It's like you don't need to imagine too much because the world you see is what you imagine, what you know, if not for just this difference, this alchemy, you know? Of course, the applications change, but the fact that it is this simple helps you to really follow the story, the story arcs, and don't feel like, oh, they're pushing it too much or the story is too complex. Why did this happen? Why now, not before? This is why the story is cool because it never have these little problems of twists in the story where you can't really connect why in the first episode you couldn't do something that now you can do just like that. This is what I mean. So keep the story simple. It helps. Another important thing is every character has their own story arc. Whether it's the main cast, the villains, or even secondary characters, in the story they all have a story arc. They start in a way and they end up somewhere else. And when you see how they build up to that moment, you understand that they're growing. These characters are turning into something better, which is something that I liked a lot. I like the way how they took even secondary characters like people you'd see maybe in one episode and you think this is just a filler episode. They don't really that doesn't really matter. Maybe I can jump the episode, but no, watch it because after that same character that didn't seem so important may help in an unexpected moment everyone, and then you realize, wow, okay, I didn't realize he was that important to the story. Cool. So this is what I mean. Twists are not always like action here, action there. Sometimes they're even story twists, like things you didn't suspect because they didn't appear like something interesting at first. They turn into something incredibly interesting because they take a turn in a way that you didn't expect. Like a character that didn't seem so important can do something that for him is nothing, and you know that for him that's nothing, but considering the situation in which the protagonists are right now, that nothing means a lot. And that's what I mean. So another really interesting thing is like in many other stories you find that people need to be so powerful. Take Dragon Ball, take Naruto, take any other story, take even stories like the Avengers in the movies, or take any story like any action story. of that has to do with powers and stuff. People have to be powerful, super, super. In Fullmetal Alchemist, it's not like this. It's more like you need to think. If you're smart and you use what you have well, you can do everything. And that's what I like of the story. Because when you think about it, this is how it works in our world. You don't have levels. You don't have someone, you can't see someone in front of you and tell him, oh, you're level 35, so you're definitely more powerful than that other person. That dude over there is 1055. He can beat you like nothing. No, that's not the real world. For Metal Alchemist, they present this story exactly like this. If you're smart and you use what you have properly, you can do whatever you want. You can grow and become the leader of the nation. And this is what made this story real to who watches it. So keep in mind, if you want to create a story for a series, for a movie, where there is action, or where there is something like in the supernatural level, always keep it simple and focus more on mind. Make the characters having to be, they have to be smart. They have to learn from their mistakes, improve and grow. That's the way. If you do this, then it doesn't seem forced. You can follow the story and it never feels like someone cheated along the way. Right? So another thing, yes, the interesting clashes of philosophy, of way of thinking, of mentality. Now, this story does this so well. You find some characters that are introduced at the beginning like crazy people. You look at them and they are erratic. Their ways of seeing the world are so radical, and you think these people are crazy. I mean, they're just people you cannot reason with, and I don't understand why they do what they do. But the more you proceed with this story, and the more they develop these characters and show them in different situations, then you realize that these people actually are not crazy. It's just that they come from a different background, so they have experienced something different from what you would expect, or from what the protagonists have experienced, that led them to that. And the interesting thing is when different mentalities or way of thinking clash. In that story, you see it a lot. Take Kimberly, for example. Kimberly is this character that, right from the beginning, from at least from when they start showing him, he seems like a crazy dude. He fought in the War of Ishval, and there he acted like another crazy dude. But sometimes he occasionally said some things or some statements, some quotes that make you wonder: is he crazy though? Sometimes some truths that people are not ready to face, you'll be able to tell them. He tells them to their face, you are erratic. You are not true to what you believe. You're saying something like this now, but you don't show it. These are things that people sometimes are not ready to face. He doesn't care. He says it. And that makes him very interesting as a character. He's not the only one. There are others. They have their own ways of thinking. You find extremes everywhere. But the point is, the story took the time to really analyze the psyche of characters. And this is so interesting. It makes the story so deep. And I like that. And the last but not least point is the story talks about problems you can relate to: war, suffering, religion, science. These are topics that we see in the world every day, and the story talks about them, explores them, tries to, of course, take it from another perspective so that we can really follow the story and don't feel like, oh, this has to do with me or this has to do with them. No, you just follow the story, but you understand, because no one is stupid. You will understand looking at the story, watching the story. You will understand what is taking, where is taking all this material. Is like, okay, now he's referring to what we know in our history as this, or we know as that. But the way how it presents this same topic in the story, it makes it look like the story is somehow your story. You feel closer to the characters because you realize that the problems they are facing, complaining about, dealing with, are the problems you somehow still face or have faced. And this is one very, very important thing that I think some stories are out there don't do. Some movies don't do. Take even like Marvel, DC, they try their best, of course, but you still feel sometimes that they are so far off from what we know that you can't relate that much. You cannot really understand what what these characters are feeling because the story doesn't let you. And even if you wanted to, you can do it up to a point. Now, Full Metal Alchemist says tries to really present issues we know, so we know what it feels like to be in the shoes of different characters they show in the story, and that's why you feel closer to them. You really understand why they do what they do, why they suffer, how they suffer, and so on and so on. So anyway, the point is, what I make with this video is talking about the interesting supernatural topics or fantasy that you can imagine is always good. It's always nice. That's what fascinates us to cinematography, to comics, to whatever it is, entertainment in itself. But don't forget that you need to anchor yourself somewhere. You need to have some basis of things the viewer knows. The viewer can come in and be like, okay, this at least I know. That's a safe bet that this is gonna stay something I know. Around it, you can build what you want. You can bring in unicorns, fairies, whatever, always explaining things, always keeping it simple, but make sure that at least there is a basis of something you know that stays what you know. Because otherwise, you're not creating a plot twist, you're creating a story that has no beginning, no end, and people are gonna get lost. That's what I mean. Take this story of Metal Alchemist in the anime without fillers. The Brotherhood was the anime without fillers. It went on for what, 64 episodes. That's a long run, at least for me. Still, it didn't seem forced. You went through. I could go through the episode, and I never felt like, oh, now I'm gonna see a bunch of episodes that make no sense. They added them because they needed more episodes to count on, so they can say, oh, I have 50,000 episodes. No, I have 60,000 episodes. I don't care about how many episodes you have. I care about the story. Are you developing the story, or are you just bringing in stuff because you think this is cool now and that's what people are talking about? I want people to talk about my story in social media everywhere, so I'm gonna put this just for that. No, this is not how you build a story. You have to have an idea, build a story, present the story, and when you're presenting the story, forget everything else. Don't think about, oh, now giants are the trend, or unicorns are the trends, or elves are the trend. I don't care. My story is not about that. It's about, I don't know, swords. I'll talk about swords. This is all. If you do this, you have a great story. Fullmetal Alchemist did this, the story is great. So if you don't know the story, I'll put some link in the description so you can check out some episodes. No, wait, I cannot put the episodes because they are online. Yes, but streaming, unfortunately. But you can just Google it. Google it or write in YouTube, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. You're gonna find different videos of different parts of the story. Of course, the best thing is to watch the episodes or read the manga. But I'm telling you, it's worth it. Read it, watch it, you love it, okay? Write some comments in the description. I'm happy for suggestions, and they're more than welcome, of course. And please subscribe, and see you next time.